Hey, Morning Brew listeners. Every year over the past decade, a powerful movement called Global Day of Unplugging takes place on the first Saturday of March, kicking off at sundown the night before. Whether it's just 1 hour, though, or a full 24 hours, the day is marked by people across the country unplugging from their screens to dive into offline activities like real-life conversations, in-person connections, and meaningful moments. Well, here to talk more about the mental health benefits of unplugging and some of the repercussions that come from not unplugging every now and then is Emma Castillo, a licensed professional counselor with Laredo's Pillar organization. Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us on Morning Brew for such an important topic. And it's just become so much more important over the last, I would say, I don't know, decade or so, where people just seem so connected to their screens, always looking down. And so this movement started about a decade ago to spend at least 24 hours unplugging, putting the phone down. So what does not unplugging do for us, if we can start there?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Mindy, for having me here today. So we know that as years go by, technology has increased at a substantial rate, right? Phones are becoming more and more common in the younger generations, right? So if I'm not mistaken, statistics show that if not 100, close to 100% of the population owns a phone over the age of 18. Right? When it comes to children as early as 5 have access to their own personal device, right? So we know that when we talk about the importance of disconnecting from your phone, from technology, we're talking about the vast majority of all people, right? So your question was, what are the repercussions, right, that we can experience when we don't disconnect? The list is pretty hefty, as you can imagine, right? First and foremost, what are we losing right off the bat? The ability to have personal connections, right? The ability to build personal connections. Right now, you and I, we're talking to each other, we're looking at each other's eyes, we're, examining each other's body language, if you will, right? We're in each other's presence without our phones. If we would have our phones right now, it would be very easy for me to have a maybe 1 minute conversation with you and immediately look down, right? So we're so used to that. That's become our normal, right? But we lose that ability. We lose that ability to be able to talk to somebody in person, face to face, build relationships. If we can't hold conversations that are longer than a couple of minutes long, how do we expect to build deeper relationships, right? So there's that interpersonal and social aspect of when you don't disconnect from your phone. It's a wide spectrum, you can even develop some physical symptoms. Our phones, our TV screens, computer screens, they emit blue light, right? So that has an effect on your eyes, on your vision. It can cause blurred vision, headaches, tension, so forth and so on, right? And of course, we can also experience emotional dysregulation, right? So when we are constantly on our phones, when we're constantly connected to our phones, we lose the ability to control our own emotions. Why? Because whether you're happy, you're going to turn to your phone. Whether you're stressed, you're going to turn to your phone. You're sad, you're upset, you're going to turn to your phone. So that becomes your one and only coping skill, right? So with everything that technology brings to us, yes, there's good advantages to take from having immediate access to our technology, such as knowledge and education, but there's also the repercussions of not being able to withstand, long periods of attention, right? You are so used to now just getting an influx of information that your mental load becomes shortened and shortened, right? So yeah, going back to the emotional regulation, we can expect to see higher symptoms of stress, lower abilities to manage any negative emotion, so on and so forth.
I worry so much with our kids nowadays because I see it with my own kids, 18 and 21 years old. And even at a restaurant, you know, everybody, if you look around, everybody just is buried in their phones. And I've made it a point, several months ago, I made it a point to, when I'm at a restaurant or I'm with my sons, just to put down my phone, physically put it down and just look at them and converse with them. And I don't think they can have a conversation for more than a few minutes with me, or as soon as we stop talking about whatever it is we're talking about, they'll immediately go for their phone.
Yes.
And, you know, as a parent, when they were very young, I felt so guilty just putting them in front of the TV to watch Sesame Street because I just felt, oh gosh, you know, the TV is my babysitter. What am I doing? But, you know, so I would purposely, you know, get them away from the TV, take them to the park and so forth, play dates and things like that. But it's just gotten so much worse than that because now it's that TV is right in their hands right now. And I don't know how to get them or what's going to happen to our kids. You know, I worry about that because do they know how to speak like you and I are speaking right now? Can they carry on a conversation with a future employer, with a professor, with other, you know, with other people without just constantly looking at the phone?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you bring that up about dinner, right? About meals, time spent with your family and meals. So that topic is really important because studies show how important having dinner time with your family is, right? So studies show that your relationship with your children will be better as they're growing older. It'll be better if you discipline your family's routines on a daily basis to have at least one meal together as a family where all members of the family are sitting at the table and that they're conversing. So, you know, an idea could be a cell phone basket, right? So as soon as food is served, cell phones go in the basket, right? And you can build this habit, Mindy, right? Parents can build this habit to where let's put the phones in the basket for the first 5 minutes of mealtime, right? And then you can do that for a few days, a few weeks until you're accustomed to that. Now we're going to be putting in the phones in the basket for the first 10 minutes of the meal. And during those 10 minutes, we have to converse with each other, right? Looking at each other in your eyes, talking in complete sentences, right? Because sometimes...
Not just answer a question with a yes or no.
Right. Sometimes you'll ask, how was your date? Good. Can I have my phone back?
Yes. One word answers is all you get.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the stimulation from a phone and just from scrolling, you know, on TikTok or whatever they're using, just, you know, going and going and going. And you just, you know, you wonder, okay, am I not stimulated enough or stimulant enough for you to carry on a conversation with me? You know, I mean, obviously you're more interested in what's going on the phone than you are with, you know, talking about what's going on in our lives and just conversing. And we have to break that habit.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, advantages of having this habit, of forming this habit of having dinner with your family is, you know, first and foremost, you're going to get to know your children. You're going to get to know your parents, right? How do you get to know someone? How do you build a relationship with someone? By spending time with them, and not just in their presence, but by getting to know them, their likes, their dislikes. So that's the advantage of this quality time during dinner, right? And it builds that predictability and stability within families, that they know, that children and parents know that at some point during the day, I'm going to connect. And you have that time, you know, to say things that are important, things that went well during your day, things that didn't. But now going to the topic of, am I being stimulating enough?
Right.
It's not necessarily that you're not stimulating enough. It's that now the way that technology has pretty much shaped us to be is that, how you mentioned TikTok, right? If you think about it, back in the day, we were used to more so platforms like YouTube, right? To where content was longer, right? 10, 15, 20, 30, I mean, an hour long. You know, you had episodes and channels on YouTube where it was a long segment. What does TikTok show us? Scroll, scroll, scroll. It's just like minutes, right? Like 1 minute content, right? So that conditions our brain to that type of cognitive load. It releases dopamine in your brain to where you are used to this like fast pace dump of dopamine in your brain because you're constantly being stimulated 1 minute at a time. If you think about it, it's like one video, you're used to TikTok, Reels, different types of content platforms where it's a minute long for the most part, right? One video can be something about cooking. The next video is going to take you maybe like to a different country. The next video is going to be humorous. The next video is going to be a touching story. I mean, if you think about it, how are you going to have a conversation in real life where you can switch topics minute to minute?
Yeah,
that's impossible, and that's not real, right?
It's not.
So we are being conditioned to something that's not real.
That is so true, because now I feel like I'm boring. I am boring for my kids because I'm not changing the topic every 58 seconds or so. Oh my God, that is so mind-blowing, Emma. That is so true.
Yeah.
I want to continue this conversation. We're going to take a quick break just so that we can have a shout out to our sponsors. But stay with us. We're going to be right back as we continue the discussion on National Unplugged Day. Stay with us.
Why pay a monthly fee? Free checking at IBC.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Morning Brew. We are talking about something that is very important. It is National Unplugged Day. It took place from March 7th into the 8th, so it did take place just a few days ago or so, but it's such a relevant topic that we still wanted to talk about the importance of being able to unplug, the repercussions when you don't unplug from electronics, and then what are the benefits of unplugging from electronics. So I'm so happy to continue the conversation with Miss Emma. She is with the Pillar of Laredo organization. She is a professional licensed counselor, and thank you so much, Emma, for sticking around with us to talk about this. So before the commercial break, we were talking about how it's just difficult to converse with folks, talking about my kids, but with so many, because they're so used to seeing a variety of different topics when you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So when you're actually talking one-on-one with somebody, maybe the attention's just not there anymore.
Right. Yeah, of course. It's becoming more and more difficult for a person to be able to engage in a live conversation rather than just being able to hide behind a screen.
Right. There's so much more that we need to talk about as far as unplugging and what it does for you when you don't, the pressure on things that you see also when you are on the phone, the pressure of having to also be posting when you are plugged into electronics, the things that you see and you just feel like, I'm not doing that. So all of a sudden, are you feeling that you're just not keeping up, or you just kind of you kind of get a low self-esteem sometimes when you see other families doing things, they're on vacation. Well, oh my gosh, I haven't taken my kids on a vacation. Am I a bad mother because we just haven't done that? I mean, there's so many things that are so mentally hurtful that sometimes you just really need to put that phone down and just be you.
Yes. I think we mentioned it a little bit earlier, right? Technology, social media, phones, it can bring some good things to us, right? It can bring loads of information. Connection, right? Sometimes we're going through a difficult time, Mindy, and when we get on social media and other people are being vulnerable and sharing pieces of their lives, you tend to connect. That's called universality, right? So you're like, wow, I'm not going through this by myself. There's other people that have gone through similar experiences like the one that I'm going through right now, and they have made it, right? So there's definitely a good chunk, right, that you can get from social media. But like you said, it can definitely lead to a lower self-esteem. It can cause doubt. It can eventually lead to anxiety, depression, right? Feelings of inadequacy, because you're seeing people, for the most part, people are posting the highlights of their lives.
Exactly.
Right? They're not posting the day-to-day laundry piles, stacks of dishes, right? Arguments with your loved ones. We're not posting that. So when we get online to perhaps disconnect from negative emotions that we're currently experiencing, you have to think about it. You're in a negative emotional state. You jump online to distract yourself or to cope, and what are you seeing? The best of people's other lives, right? The best of people's lives, right? Of other people's lives, sorry. What's that gonna do to you? You're already
Yes.
in a low emotional state. And then if you dare step into that negative realm of comparison, I mean, where is it going to take you to?
It's just going to take you even lower than where you were when you first got on the phone.
Exactly, exactly. So you might think I'm coping with my issues by distracting myself, but in reality, there's a lot of harm in that.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have gone onto, social media and just really felt inadequate as a mom
Right.
because of things that I've seen there. Thinking, gosh darn, where did I go wrong? Why aren't my kids like that? Or why, or just anything, And at the end of the day, I've got wonderful kids. I have no complaints
Absolutely.
about my kids, and I, wouldn't do anything different. Except maybe with the phone. Except maybe with the
Yeah,
phone.
yeah.
But I have great kids. But, when you go on there and like you said, you see, the best of everybody,
Right.
it does cause you to doubt and it causes you to compare. And that's not good for your mental health at all.
And if we can just add here really quick, social media is really, it's really built to be addicting. So you don't know, right? People aren't intentionally going online to make themselves feel worse, but that's just the way that social media has been built to where it's addicting to receive those notifications when people are liking your content. That ring, right, is stimulating to the brain. So what do you want to do? You become addicted, so then you want to continue posting and continue getting likes and continue. So you develop a form of validation through other people's likes. What does that mean? You're losing a little bit of yourself, of your own validation, of self-validation, validation from your loved ones, right? Because we seek so much the approval of others, right? When in reality, I mean, that's not substantial, right? So I mean, the effects of social media can be pretty negative if we're not careful and if we're not mindful.
So what can we do? I mean, what are some of the things or some of the ways that we could not depend on our electronics so much? Is it just a matter of putting the phone down and finding, different ways to find validation or different ways to live without electronics? I mean, I lived
Yeah.
without I'm dating myself. I lived without a cell phone until
Right.
after I graduated from college. We just didn't have cell phones growing up, and and we were pretty well-rounded kids. So what kind of damage are we doing to our kids, if we
Yeah.
don't set parameters with
Well,
phones and electronics?
Well, of course, there was a time before this social media and technology frenzy that we're seeing now. That makes us aware that it's possible. That makes us aware that we can do that, right? We're not damaging our children if we're taking away the phone by 8 p.m., right? But I think it really comes from a place of self-awareness, right? You are aware of how much time you spend on your phone. You are aware, you were just sharing with me right now, of sometimes the negative effects that it has on you. So that would draw you to say, what can I do about it? So it really, Mindy, has a lot to do with self-awareness and self-will. You have to want to, first and foremost, withdraw, right? You have to want to withdraw from this if you're noticing through self-awareness, if you're noticing the negative repercussions of it.
Absolutely, and I think that Emma happened with me, a few months, maybe about 4 to 6 months ago, when I realized that, as much as I depend on my phone to, talk to my kids if I'm looking for them, my husband, work, of course, related things, but there are just times when I just feel like I don't need to have this phone with me, and I will just set it down for hours at a time, especially over the weekends when, you know, you just want to not be so connected to being connected. You just need to walk away.
Right, and that Mindy, translates into being dependent on it, right? Because yes, there's that aspect of being addicted to your phone, but you're also dependent on it, right? Because as we were mentioning earlier, you have a negative emotion, whatever it may be, and you reach for your phone. You feel uncomfortable with a person, you feel uncomfortable having a conversation, you'll be on the phone.
You'll pick up your phone.
You pick up your phone, right? It's like your little shield. It's your little, like, you know, it's what I can
your Linus blanket. Yeah.
Yes, it's what can always have your back. It's, you know, you feel awkward in front of a crowd, or you feel awkward with someone, you can just hide behind your phone, right? You're
so
bored,
true.
right? So it's good to understand that that's not your only way to cope, right? You can do other things rather than depend on your phone, which is what we're talking about, right? You don't have to depend on your phone for everything. It would be so interesting for more people to be able to just simply get to know yourself, right? And that means putting the phone down. And first and foremost, for example, if you're a parent, look at your kids, right? It's so important. Sometimes we want our kids to disconnect from our phones, but how are they going to do it? Kids don't listen just with words. Kids listen with actions, right? So we have to model that for them, right? So if they see mom and dad not hooked on their phones all the time, well, then they can also not be hooked on their iPads, not be hooked on their phones, not be hooked on the TV. But it has a lot to do with modeling, right?
Okay, so the buck stops with us. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okie doke.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about some coping methods that we can and our viewers can look into. Maybe some tips and things that we can start working on. We're just going to take another quick break. Got to say thank you to our sponsor. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We are so delighted to have with us Miss Emma. She's a licensed professional counselor with the Pillar Organization of Laredo. We are talking about disconnecting. It is National Unplugged Day. It took place on March 7th, going into March 8th, so a few days ago, but that doesn't mean that we still can't disconnect. So I want to end our segment, Emma, with some really good information, some good tips for our viewers, for me, for my colleagues, for all of us on how we can get started with just, you know, even if it's just baby steps that leads to maybe 24 hours or a whole weekend or something like that. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so like we said earlier, it's going to start with self-awareness, right? And it's just an idea for you to try, right? Just try it. See how long you can last, right? And like you said, Mindy, sometimes people start with an hour, sometimes people go 24 hours. Same thing with the amount of disconnecting that you're going to do. Maybe you can stay away from social media for a little bit, not entirely turn off your phone, right? Because like you mentioned earlier, sometimes we need to communicate with our family, our loved ones, you know, for other reasons we use our phones, which is totally understandable. But it's going to start with self-awareness and that self-will to want to disconnect from your phone. And the list of things that you can do is endless. Call a loved one. Talk to a family member. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? Do you like gardening? Do you like trying a new recipe? Do you like to cook? Do you like to take pictures? Do you like to play? Do you like to use your imagination? We're talking about all age ranges, right? Do you like to use your imagination? Do you like bird watching, for all I know? You know, I mean, and Laredo has a bird watching community,
Yes, we
right?
do.
So do you like to spend time outdoors? Do you know what nature sounds like at this moment in time, right? You can connect with your spirituality, right? You can connect with your higher power. You can connect with people here, interpersonal relationships, right? You can go out and find new hobbies, right? Go out and see something different that you haven't seen.
You know, you had a really good idea just a little bit ago during our little commercial break where you talked about the Lenten season and maybe some people, you know, maybe giving up a little bit of their phone time during Lent.
Yes, yes. So we know that some people are for a certain period of time, some people are fasting certain things, right? It primarily starts with meals or with certain types of foods or food in general. But as we see in modern times, people are also fasting from different things, one of them being social media. Right? So some people are choosing to deactivate their accounts for this period of time. Some people are choosing to, you know, Mindy, there's settings on your phone that you can apply, right? That limit your screen time. Your phone will alert you once you've had a certain period of time on your phone for that day, right? So people right now are finding themselves also fasting from social media. And when you come out of this period in time, you might be different. You might say, wow, I can be disconnected. I liked being disconnected. What did disconnecting myself from my phone do for me? I'm sure it would only do positive things. I grew closer to my kids. I grew closer to my home. I started paying more attention to details in my home, maybe some renovations. I had more time to read. I had more time to be, you know, if someone is a student, right? I had more time to finish my homework earlier. I had more time to spend with my elderly mother. Possibilities are endless.
They sure are. You know, another little step that I had looked at also and read about was what happens when the phone is the very first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning. You pick up your phone and you check it, and all of that energy that you just used went straight into the first 15 minutes when you were awake, and then after that you wanted to go back to sleep. You were just tired. So maybe just not putting the phone there.
And again, that comes from being aware, from being self-aware, right? We don't want to be a slave to our phone, right? We don't want to idolize our phone either, you know? So, and you know, if you think about it, you go online, first thing you see, maybe some bad news, right? Again, a comparison. Oh, you know, like something dreadful. That's how you're starting your morning instead of being mindful, which is something that we practice, you know, in the mental health field. Mindfulness, Mindy, it's so important because yesterday is gone. Tomorrow isn't promised. The only thing that you have guaranteed is today, this very moment, right? So we want to be able to wake up and as cliche as it sounds, seize the day, right? We want to be mindful and just be mindful of your own desires for the day, right? It's really important when we talk about mental health to practice gratitude. Right? Gratitude can literally change the shape of your brain. You can look that up for yourself. But instead of looking at your phone first thing in the morning, try practicing gratitude. And it'll start your day on a completely different trajectory.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's the seize the day, carpe diem,
Yes.
and practice gratitude and mindfulness.
Yes.
What a great way to kick off a new time in your life to try and disconnect and just reconnect with yourself and reconnect with your family. Emma, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Morning Brew on Unplugging. Appreciate having you with us, and I hope you come back for another segment. This was really good.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for inviting Pillar to come and talk to you. We just want to let the community know that Pillar is an organization that serves the community. We're on McPherson. We have a medical clinic. We have in-person psychiatric treatment. We have different services and programs that can fulfill the need of mental health needs for the community.
And that is so important.
Yes.
Mental health just as important as physical health. Thank you, Emma. Appreciate having you
Yes,
with us. And
thank you.
that does it for this episode of Morning Brew. Thank you so much for hanging out with us over the last 30 minutes. We hope that you definitely stay with us for another episode next week of Morning Brew. Until then, enjoy the brew.